oxygen, Paul? Good evening and welcome to the meeting of Woking Borough Council Executive. My name is Councillor Clive Jones. I am the leader of the council and I will be chairing this meeting. Can everyone please ensure that any mobile devices or mobile phones are switched off? If you're participating on Teams, I think Gary may be. When you are not speaking or being asked to speak, please mute your microphones. If you do not mute your microphone, it will be done for you. Please note that the meeting is currently being webcast live. The members of the executive present tonight are Councillor David Hare, Councillor Sarah Kerr, Councillor Prue Bray, Councillor Stephen Conway, Councillor Lindsay Ferris, Councillor Paul Fishwick, Councillor Ian Shenton and Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubay. Apologies for absence. We have apologies from Rachel Bishop-Firth. Everybody else is here. Move on to the minutes. We're asked to confirm the minutes of the executive meeting of the 29th of September 2022. With reference to page 28, an amendment has been made to ensure that it is clear that the abusive member of the public stormed off and not Jim Fruin. With the addition of the minutes, are members content to agree these minutes? All those in favour? You want to help? Yep, thanks. I'll sign those in a second. Item 49, any declarations of interest? Can I remind members that they must specify which agenda item their interest relates to? I don't think there are any this evening. No. So I shall just make a short statement. These are very, very difficult economic times. The council was left with a shortfall in the current financial year of just over 2.2 million, which was covered by the previous administration, taking money from the general reserves to balance the budget. We can't use general reserve again to do this for next year. To do this would mean that the general reserve would drop below £7 million, which would then see the government taking over the running of the council, as they have in Labour-controlled Slough and Conservative-controlled Thurrock. And I'm absolutely certain that none of the members of the council, all 54 members of the council, would want that to happen. So that's the partnership and the Liberal Democrat group in particular, and I think also the Conservative opposition would not want that to happen. We all know that Wokingham is the lowest funded unitary authority in the country. And I have written to the Chancellor of the Exchequer to ask him to find more money for Wokingham. Wokingham currently gets about £24 million a year less than the average unitary authority. And if we've been doing that for the last 6, 7, 8 years, then we have missed out on an awful lot of money. And it really is time that the government did something specifically for Wokingham. In recent days, the government has once again shuffled their ministers around the cabinet table. Some have suggested that there might be cuts in services, and it's been suggested that this could mean less money for local councils. If there is less funding from the government, Wokingham Borough Council will be in serious trouble, but it will be the fault of the Conservative government. Many residents have told me about their concerns about increases in their mortgages following Liz Truss's disastrous budget. Many will have to find an extra £500 a month in interest charges. That's a massive £6,000 a year that could have been spent in the local economy, especially in our shops. Increases to energy costs are also hurting our residents and local businesses. Energy costs have doubled since last year. Increases in mortgages, increases in energy costs and inflation is doing far more to hurt local retailers than any increases in car park charges. I'm really concerned about the local economy, so I hope that the government will keep energy costs low, will keep interest rates low, and I hope they will continue to support local councils and find more money for local authorities like Wokingham that has been underfunded for so long. We now move on to item 51, which is public question time. I'd like to extend the time for public question time. It's 30 minutes, but we will extend it for as long as necessary to get through all of the public questions. So the first question is from Sarah Evershed. Okay.
Can't hear.
Oh, right.
I struggled to hear.
Do you? I'll shout.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I really struggled to hear.
Okay. All right.
Okay. The proposed football pitch at Maiden Early School will increase the pressure on the restricted access to the site. The entrance is through an already congested shopping parade, which includes the only chemist on the estate, and in close proximity to 2 bus stops and a pedestrian crossing. During big school events, parents' evenings, the queuing traffic already extends along Silverdale Road. Adding into this the traffic from the 3G pitch will create this scenario every evening of the week as parents and people overlap during the changeover of sessions on the new pitch. The school has already accepted that congestion occurs in the vicinity. Bearing these facts in mind, and that visiting teams are likely to come from outside of the borough, are the council accepting that this pitch will increase pollution, congestion, and increase the risk to the community's safety?
Thank you. It's recognised that there is restricted access to the site, and due to the buildings beside the access, there's no opportunity to improve that. It's also recognised that there is congestion in the area during drop-off and pick-up times from the schools. To avoid conflict, the uses of the football pitch during the week would be restricted to after school time to ensure that there would not be any overlap between the school and the pitch. This is the current situation with football activity during the winter months. There is ample parking on site for the use of the pitch during out-of-school hours operation, as the parking standard for pitches is 20 spaces per pitch. However, there would need to be an agreement between the school and the Borough Council to ensure that there are no conflicts with large events, such as parent-teacher evenings. The key partner clubs will encourage players and partners and parents, to walk or cycle to the site to reduce the impact on residents. And promotion to encourage parents to share lifts, particularly on midweek training nights, will also be a key feature. Those actions are expected to more than offset any increase in pollution from visiting teams on match days.
Thank you. Unfortunately, you can't have a supplementary. Sorry. The next question is from Sandra Spencer. Nice to see you again.
Hello. An online petition against the plan for a large man-made 3G pitch to replace most of Maiden Early's school grass field has attracted at least 164 signatures. It's gone up a bit since then. Almost everyone I've spoken to in Early is totally opposed to the plan, given the massive negative impact on their quality of life the non-stop renting out will bring. The council claims it wants to enhance the lives and well-being of local people, but this will cause untold misery as residents never get a break from the noise, traffic and parking problems. People also have many other serious concerns about the pitch. Does Wokingham Borough Council care about the impact on residents at all? And how many signatures do we need for the council to take us seriously?
The purpose of the consultation was to establish the views of residents, and I think that demonstrates that the council does care. It's elicited almost 1,000 responses and numerous other inputs, highlighting several issues that do need careful consideration and will be taken very seriously. Prior to the consultation, the council had already identified the need for noise and parking management plans and will now assess what other mitigation would be required if it were to proceed further. In that event, it would still be required to go through the same process and be subject to the same tests as all other planning applications.
Thank you, Ian. Do you have a supplementary question?
I do.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes. When are we likely to get the results of the consultation and a date for submitting a planning application if it goes ahead?
Third time lucky. I don't have a date for when the consultation results will be available. I'm looking forward to them myself. Planning application, I suspect, will be some way off.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Elizabeth Newman, also for Councillor Shenton. Evening.
Put the button on. It's close to you as well, otherwise.
Right, good evening again.
Good evening.
The proposed 3G pitch will cover yet more ground with plastic, which over time, as the plastic degrades, will shed its load of microplastics into the local environment and in due course watercourses that feed into our rivers. Rainwater that would have previously sunk into the ground now flow down towards Avalon Road and we're told be captured. Has there been a risk assessment of precisely how and where the water will then be directed and how the microplastics large enough to be physically captured will be dealt with? Given the severe flooding of Radnor Road after heavy rain, natural drainage would appear to be already a problem in the locality.
Thank you.
Thank you. Following a review of the drainage systems on the site, drainage has been included and it would utilise a Thames water service outlet and the northeast corner of the potential pitch. If the proposal were to progress beyond the current feasibility stage, a full drainage survey would be carried out as part of design work prior to any planning application being made. In line with the guidance on how to minimise infill dispersion into the environment by the Football Foundation within their AGP framework, I believe that's artificial grass framework, currently includes within all new projects tendered infill retention measures to include but not limited to perimeter infill containment barriers within the fence line, smooth bar industrial grate and recess pits to prevent it being washed into the drainage system, perimeter margins on all boundaries and boot cleaning stations. The design of the pitch drainage will reflect the findings of the flood risk assessment, and the standard practice for modern 3G pitches is for a holding tank to be placed underneath the pitch to hold rainwater to then be slowly dispersed into the ground. The system also has filters to capture any potential rubber crumb penetrating the sublevels of the base.
You have a supplementary question?
Yes, and the maintenance of that system, is that something that the school will meet the cost of, or something that the council will have to meet?
Sorry.
So the maintenance of that drainage system, is that something under the control of the school or under the control of the school? Council, sorry.
Hang on, microphone, feedback is on, sorry. It's an old system, isn't it?
System doesn't allow more than 2 microphones, and one is the chair. That would be part of the council's operation, as far as I'm aware.
Thank you very much. And the 4th question is from Michaela Thomas. So this is going to be put by Aaron Brown in her absence. Thank you.
I'm concerned about the proposal for a 3G pitch at Maiden Early School and the increase of these pitches in the borough. The known environmental and health issues caused by the tyre rubber crumb infill in 3G pitches is a huge concern across the world, and yet the local authority continued to install these at a rapid rate without seeking other possible alternatives. Have you considered the financially viable long-term future of plastic pitches if within the next few years central government's view changes and they lean towards an alternative non-rubber infill or even a complete ban, as is the case in Europe and other parts of the world?
I would first like to refer you to the research conducted. Research conducted by the. I'd like to refer you to the research conducted by the European Chemical Agency, the ECHA, which was released in 2019, concluding that, and I quote, ECHA has found no reason to advise people against playing sport on synthetic turf containing recycled rubber granules as infill material. In 2020, the results of a major pan-European scientific study undertaken by internationally respected independent researchers and published in the journal Science of the Total Environment concluded that no health concerns were found for AGPs with end-of-life tyre-derived infill material. The council has no desire to build and promote 3G pitches for usage by residents if the scientific findings conclude that they are unsafe, but that is not the case. Furthermore, Sport England has stated that the ECHA report found no reason to advise people against playing sport on 3G pitches with rubber crumb. Any such government action as you suggest would therefore be unsupported by research and thus unlikely.
Thank you very much. And the 5th question is from Judith Clark, who is asking a question of Councillor Shenton and attending remotely.
Oh dear.
He's on there twice for some reason.
Just be.
Yeah. Could you just be logged in once, Mrs. Clark, rather than twice? You're currently logged in twice.
Do you want to come to the next one and then let
No,
the
not
council-
yet.
No.
Are you there? We'll come back to you at the end of public question time. So we'll move on to item number 6. And this is Chris Thomas asking a question of Councillor Shenton, and this has been put by Elizabeth Newman.
For Chris Thomas. How does the installation of 3G pitches fit in with your commitment to delivering a greener future and your climate emergency action plan? Instead of opting for plastic pitches, have you fully investigated other options, like simply investing in improving existing grass pitches? The Football Foundation run a grass pitch revolution scheme, which offers funding to improve existing pitches as an alternative to 3G pitches. Could this be a solution for Laurel Park pitches instead of shoehorning a new plastic pitch into a residential area where nearby residents are opposed to it?
Thank you. The Football Foundation does work closely with local football clubs and local authorities to support the enhancement of grass football pitches. However, a host of local clubs still train on substandard surfaces and in cramped school halls and expensive commercially run sites. The 3G pitch provision aims to reduce the impact on local clubs of having to use out-of-date or unsuitable training facilities. The Football Foundation looks to improve the opportunities for teams to enjoy 3G facilities, have the ability to host teams on safe and modern floodlit pitches. Training is a key part in supporting the well-being of participants, and 3G provides coaches with a medium to improve technical and physical elements of the game. 3G pitches allow for year-round use and do not get waterlogged or muddy. 3G pitches also offer a safe surface, and players will reduce the risk of injury, unlike the old-style concrete-based pitches.
Question number 7. This is a question from Emily Thomas of Councillor Shenton. She's unable to attend, so the question will be put by Jim Badoon.
Thank you. Regarding the proposal for 3G pitch at Maiden Early School, the grass blades are made from plastic that is the equivalent of about 1.5 million plastic bags. And the rubber crumb comes from about 20,000 end-of-life tires. Can I please ask, what will happen to the plastic pitches when they reach the end of their very short lifespan of about 10 years? Will the pitches be recycled, or do they end up in landfill? In a time of climate emergency, it seems ludicrous that these pitches are seen as a sensible solution just so football matches can play on in wet weather.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. The 3G pitches allow for evening uses, particularly in the winter months when the light fades and outdoor pitches are not suitable, as indicated in my answer to the previous question, in fact. Furthermore, the Football Foundation AGP framework supports and endorses the handling of end-of-life synthetic turf pitches in accordance with waste regulations, which seek to ensure that waste is handled in the most sustainable way. To ensure that end-of-life synthetic turf pitches are processed in a way considered acceptable to the Football Foundation and its partners, only the recycling companies and their listed processes will be authorised for use on AGP framework-funded projects. Under no circumstances shall end-of-life synthetic turf surfacing be disposed of by repurposing or landfill. All end-of-life synthetic turf components will be disposed safely. Also worth noting, I think a recent change to 3G projects going forward is that the perimeter infill barriers within the fence line are to comprise 100% recycled material, with the majority of content from recycled synthetic turf pitches.
Thank you. Yep, I'll do it at the end. Yep. Question number 8. From Paul Stevens to Councillor Lindsay Ferris. Nice to see you again, Paul.
Hi.
Good evening. We were repeatedly told by the previous administration, sorry, this is for the executive member for planning and local plan. We were repeatedly told by the previous administration that large strategic development locations are the best mechanism for delivery of essential infrastructure. Can the executive member for planning and local plan confirm or deny that this is still considered to be the case?
Very much for your question. Our new planning strategy will require a range of development types, including both large and small sites. I expect larger scale development designed holistically with infrastructure similar to our existing strategic development locations to continue to play a role in any future proposals. I personally believe that our existing planned SDLs have been reasonably successful. However, there are always learnings that we can take forward. The SDL approach has to date led to the provision of 5 new primary schools, 1 new secondary schools, new affordable homes, hundreds of hectares of new open green spaces, and new that's good spoonerism, and new road links, including the Eastern Relief Road, Shinfield, Observer Way, Arborfield, and the Northern Distributor Road, Wokingham. As I mentioned, there will always be things that we can do better, and we have a team that recognises this. Notwithstanding having visited some larger developments outside of the borough, what we have achieved is often or visibly higher quality than elsewhere.
Do you have a supplementary?
If that's okay. So if SDLs really are the best way to deliver infrastructure, why are the residents of Arborfield Green running a petition on change.org, which states, since 2016, residents of Arborfield Green have been promised a village centre. Residents were sold properties based on the promises of facilities to be provided. Crest Nicholson have repeatedly failed on this promise to provide a village centre. Development of the village centre should have begun after 1,000 properties were built. This figure was surpassed in 2019. There is still no end in sight. Crest Nicholson committed to a final consultation in September 2022 and a planning application to be submitted by October 2022, neither of which have happened. Further infrastructure commitments such as a medical centre, a shop, a pub have also failed to be delivered. I am concerned about this issue, not just in relation to the residents of Arborfield Green, who have clearly been let down badly, but also in relation to proposed new SDLs, such as Loddon Garden Village at Hall Farm. Included in the proposed Hall Farm infrastructure planning are 4 schools, a library, a post office, a gym, a medical centre, 3 shops, a bank, and a community centre. And yesterday we had the possibility of a pub added to that. Why should the residents of Arborfield believe this new infrastructure will be delivered as part of another, even bigger SDL, when so much of what was promised as part of the smaller Arborfield Green SDL is still being waited for? I am aware that the Arborfield Green Community Centre is now being consulted on, but the medical centre was rejected by the clinical commissioning group due to a lack of doctors. How can the proposed new infrastructure at Hall Farm be any different to that already promised at Arborfield Green, when the problems of delivery are beyond the scope of Wokingham Borough Council to resolve?
That's all right.
And quite a number of questions.
I do share your concerns about the range of issues you've raised. As it happened, I saw Crest Nicholson yesterday with a number of colleagues, and we have pressed quite hard with them to ensure that they are going to be moving forward with a number of the activities and provision of facilities such as the centre and the like. And I believe that there will be consultation happening this autumn, and they are looking to put forward planning applications to deal with both the shopping centre area and the neighbourhood centre in the next few months. And if they aren't going to be progressing, I shall be pushing hard on that issue. Regarding new sites, what I have found is that some developers are better than others. Facilities have been provided in certain SDL locations in a timely manner or reasonably timely manner, whereas in others they have been a bit laggard. And we have to keep on at those developers that fall in that latter category.
Thank you very much. We'll now move back to question 5 from Judith Clark. are you able to join us, Mrs. Clark? Currently, you're on mute. Are you there? I can't hear you, so I'll ask. Yes, okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's all right. So your question is for Councillor Shenton.
Oh, right, okay. All right. An artificial, oh, I'm just checking I got the right one, yeah. An artificial 3G pitch made in early school has been put forward as an environmentally friendly solution for early football teams because it will allow young people to play locally and cut down on car journeys outside the borough. However, Maiden Early School is not in Central Early, but on the western side, both of Early and of Woking Borough. So it's also further from London. But your own consultation material admits that players will be making car journeys of up to 45 minutes duration. And Laurel Park Football Club admits it wants players from as far away as Teddington to travel here. Given this, how can a pitch at this school be the right location to meet the environmental argument of cutting down on motor traffic?
Thank you for that. I would first of all refer to the third part of my answer to question 1. And I will read that out. The key partner clubs will encourage players and parents to walk or cycle to the site to reduce the impact on residents. Promotion to encourage parents to share lifts, particularly on midweek training nights, will also be a key feature. These actions are expected to more than offset any increase in pollution from visiting teams on match days. And I would then add that those actions would also be expected to result in a reduction of vehicle movements.
It wouldn't be normal to have a supplementary, but if you want to have one.
Okay. Sorry, I hadn't anticipated that. Okay.
We like to try to be fair.
Well, yes, I mean, I don't know what her supplementary question would have been, but what I can say is that I don't believe for a second that people will walk, cycle and share lifts because, I mean, I've just seen it and I'm sure you have. Even people to go up to the local shops, they use their cars. You know, they don't want to share. It's not realistic, I'm afraid, unless you put locks on all the cars. People are addicted to their cars. This is why we're in this climate emergency. I'm afraid, yeah, it's just the way it is. It won't work. And I'm sorry, but I don't believe your answer. Yeah, and that's not really a question.
No, it was,
okay,
it was a statement, but I'm sure we can find a question within it.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
If you don't mind, we'll take that as a question. Ian can give you an answer.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes. Microphone tennis. I think you have to place a degree of trust in the fact that people will try their best. Maybe I just have a slightly different view of people's attitude to climate change and the need to do something about it.
I think you make a very valid point, though. So thank you very much. Okay, so that concludes public question time. We'll move to member question time, item 52. And we have a question from Councillor Gary Cowan, who is, I think, there. Yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you, Gary. Do you want to ask a question?
Yes, certainly. I would just make a quick comment on Paul Stevens' question earlier. He forgot the primary school, which was built for Arkfield Garrison, yet all the kids in Arkfield Garrison driving the cars all over the borough because they're not allowed to go to that school. Anyway, getting back to my question.
Thank you.
Unlike the previous Conservative administration, has the current administration a public view on building housing beyond the government's planned period of 15 years? I refer in particular to the 2,200 plus houses written into the local plan housing update at Hall Farm, or are they content to keep the building of those 2,002 houses beyond the government's planned period and within the evolving plan, or are they simply just publicly saying now they are not in their plans and building beyond the government's 15-year plan in the LPU?
Thank you, Gary, for your question. National planning policy requires local plans to look ahead over a minimum of 15 years from adoption. Recent amendments also introduced the expectation for larger scale developments to be set within a vision that looks further ahead, and that refers to up to 30 years. As you are aware, I have concerns about the planning beyond the 15-year period, and as such, I have asked for council, that's a KC, advice on this matter to be sought to help inform our future decisions.
Thank you, Lindsay. Do you have a supplementary question, Gary?
Yes, thank you for that answer. Will the council be required to carry out another public consultation before they progress to a public inquiry, which I believe they now call an examination in public? And if so, when approximately might that be?
Thank you, Gary. Before a local plan is submitted for examination, a council must publish the proposed plan and invite representation as to whether it is compliant and sound. At the moment, I am engaging closely with officers in reviewing the options for the plan, and you were part of that recently. I am at this stage not able to say when we might reach this point. We will publish a detailed programme as soon as we are able to, and we are going through the reviews of the various sites at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
That is it for members' questions. So we move to item 54. And can I ask the Deputy Leader and Executive Member for Housing, Stephen Conway, to introduce this item?
Thank you, Clive. It looks as though I'm about to empty the room. I think it'd probably be best to let people go before I
that's fine.
start talking to an empty room.
Yeah. Good night. Thank you, Paul.
Right. Really, nobody wants to hear what I'm going to say. Item 54 on our agenda, rent setting policy. This is a procedural item, which I hope all colleagues will support. The procedure is, in fact, no different than in previous years. It relates to the principles underlying the process of rent setting for our HRA tenants, not to the rent level itself. A final decision on the rent for 2023-24 will be made much nearer to the setting of the council's budget in February of next year. At this stage, however, I would like to draw your attention to the second paragraph of the recommendation. A significant number of our tenants are struggling in the current cost of living crisis, and I'm working with our officers to minimise the increase, while at the same time protecting the viability of the HRA as a fund that covers not only repairs and maintenance of our current stock, but also helps to deliver much needed social rental homes for the future. We are also seeking in this process of work that's ongoing to ensure that targeted help is given to those already in arrears or in danger of going into arrears. So this is, as I said, purely procedural matter, and I don't think it's one that need detain us for very long.
Thank you, Stephen. Does anybody have any questions for Stephen or any comments? No, so we'll go straight to the vote. And this is, we're voting on the recommendation set out on page 31, agenda item 54, rent setting policy. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Move to item 55, capital monitoring 2022-23 quarter 3, and this will be introduced by Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubey, Executive Member for Finance.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I can see we've cleared the rooms. So nobody wants to hear this stuff. Anyhow, we have this year inherited a budget that was woefully inadequate for the needs of this council. As examples, there was insufficient funding for rebuilding Winnish Park Ride, despite its problems being known about in last October. There was no funding in the budget for food caddy liners. There was woefully inadequate provision for getting children to school and supporting children with special educational needs. On top of this, inflation problems that are affecting everybody are also affecting the council, and the costs have risen beyond expectation. This means we are having to make decisions such as cutting the provision of blue bags and providing extra funding to maintain vital bus services due to increases in oil prices. But with adversity, there's always the opportunity, and the opportunity here is for us to look more closely at how our services are run. No councillor becomes a councillor with the expectation of having to cut services and increase prices. We are having to make those difficult decisions on behalf of our residents, otherwise this council would cease to be able to carry out its basic functions, including being able to support the most vulnerable in our society. With a significant shortfall in income and reduced support from central government funds, we are finding we are left with very few choices. I'm going to talk first about the capital monitoring report. The council is looking across all areas to make savings. To begin with, we are looking at this year's capital monitoring report. Capital is the money that is used for projects and often comes from grants or money provided by developers. Some of the money is borrowed by the council, which is what we need to avoid, especially as right now interest rates are very high. Borrowing should only go ahead if we have no choice. Within this report, you can see that we've reduced the expected spend on capital by not replacing IT and phone equipment for council staff, reducing spend on school kitchens, reducing spends on major road schemes, and we have pushed some projects forward so they'll be started in later years. This means we have now been able to reduce the capital programme for this year by 18.57 million. The recommendations that come with this report are as follows. 1, that we note the reduction in this year's capital programme, something I very much welcome. And 2, that we approve the carry forwards of the project for the next 3 years, understanding that there may be inflationary costs involved, but these items are not going to be completed this year and so therefore are being pushed into later years. 3, to note a review by the finance team of the projects that require borrowing. Interest rates are currently very high and we would rather not be borrowing right now if we can help it. That's it for the monitoring.
Thank you very much, Imogen. Very comprehensive introduction. Do any members have any questions or comments? No?
Just a very brief comment, if I may, really to compliment our officers and Imogen on the work that's been done on this and all our colleagues. It's a phenomenally big task, and I'm very grateful for all the work that's been put in.
Yep.
I want to expand on that with what Stephen said about all the hard work that's been put in. Not sat through so many meetings trying to number crunch for a long time. We've got a reduction in our capital. And have you at the moment been able to work out how much that has reduced our borrowing?
Oh, but Graham's online. He might be able to tell us. I don't know. Graham, are you there?
I think that's
Oh, no, he's, I think I saw him coming. No,
that's something, Imogen, that you can come back. I think there seems to be an issue there. So I think
We can come back on
you
that
can
one.
come back to
I was
Lindsay
wondering if he
with,
had it to hand, but he probably doesn't know.
with-
Okay.
with a written answer, but I too think that we've all worked very well with the officers, and the officers have done a tremendous job over the last 4 months, trying to make sure that we reach our aim of balancing the budgets at the end of this year. So I have my congratulations.
Perhaps we could make sure those thanks are recorded in the minutes.
Okay, right. So
So we need to, we do need to
the
accept.
yes, the
accept this, yep.
recommendations are on page 51, agenda item 55, capital monitoring 2022-23 to 2. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Unanimous. We move to item 56. Revenue Budget Monitoring Report 22-23 quarter 2. You again, Imogen.
It is, yeah. Okay, this is sort of a good news story. In fact, both reports we have here tonight are good news, really. But this one shows where we've been able to make savings from within the council, reducing our deficit for this year from 2.2 million to 1.54 million at the moment. There is still much to do, and it does not yet include any of the possible income streams that we have identified. It does show the emerging picture of a worrying increase in number of children in care and high levels of children moving into the area mid-year. These children are often requiring transport to the nearest available school, which may not be the nearest to where they live. There is also a significant increase in the cost of supporting children with special educational needs, but we are hoping this will eventually become better managed when we open new local SEND schools. There is a significant reduction in income from car parking and leisure activities. People's habits have changed during COVID, and obviously many people are reducing their spending on leisure, and many are spending more time working from home. There is still much more work to do, and we need to remind everybody that we still need to get this revenue spend to zero by the end of the year. Our reserves were depleted by the previous administration during COVID, and we have very limited levels of reserves left that we can actually use. Next year is not looking any better, and we must continue to make these difficult and unpopular decisions on behalf of our residents. I am aware that there is much discussion going on about some of the ideas that have been suggested to bridge this gap, including the possibility of increasing car parking fees. I would like to assure our residents that we are looking everywhere across the whole council for where we can make savings and increase revenue. We would not be doing these things if there were better choices, but we all have to be responsible with our spending and stop this council going into special measures. This is where councils such as Slough and Thurrock have gone wrong, and it's not a positive experience for the residents. We are asking all of our councillors and officers and members of the public too for realistic ideas on how to reduce the council's spending and increase revenue. However, this report does show that we are heading in the right direction. I would suggest with it that we have two recommendations. One, we are to accept the quarterly revenue monitoring report, which shows we are heading in the right direction. And two, recommendation 2, ask the executives to delegate the ability to adjust leisure charges to the Deputy Chief Executive, Graham Ebbers, and the Executive Member for the Environment and Sport and Leisure, Ian here, so they can have a much more responsive approach to setting fees. Okay.
Thank you very much, Imogen. I think you're absolutely right. We're moving in the right direction, and we are taking difficult decisions when we have to. Does anybody to ask any questions or say something, Stephen?
Just wanted to again repeat my thanks in relation to the revenue side to the officers for the work they've been putting in. They've given us wonderful support, and we're immensely grateful for that. And to thank Imogen for her leadership in this area. And just a small note, the paragraph that starts at the end of page 63 and goes on to page 64 on the housing revenue account, the HRA, puts into context the comments I made earlier about how we're going to have to consider all of these factors in the rent rise.
Okay.
We need to make a comment about children's services, that the demand, we'll use the word unprecedented. It really is unprecedented. The number of children that we've had moving into the borough is extraordinarily high. And and trying to accommodate those children and move them around the borough to school is putting huge pressure on everything. Of course, we've got higher numbers of children in care and unaccompanied asylum seeking children that we have to accommodate. We welcome them to the borough. They've had terrible experiences, but they put more pressure on us. So you can see a figure there predicting an overspend at the end of the year. That's despite everything that everybody is doing to try and keep that number down. And I would like to thank the officers in Children's Services for all the work that they've done on that. But it's really hard to keep a lid on it.
Thank you, Prue. Anybody else want to ask a question, make any statement? No? So we shall move to the vote. Agenda item 56 on page 61, and we have the two recommendations there. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. And then item 57, Lease for Learning Disability Respite Centre, and this will be introduced by Councillor David Hare.
Thank you. Not sure whether people will know or won't know, but Loddon Court is the council's respite centre for adults with learning disabilities, and it's run by Optalis. And do people understand what respite is? Respite is the time for families to regroup, to have a rest, for recharging their batteries, for the often hard but hugely enjoyable commitment of many caring families for their offspring with learning disabilities, or perhaps mental health problems. Without this service, there might well be an increase in family breakdown, and so more demand for the high cost of supporting people either living in the community or in residential accommodation. And there's no other similar service, certainly in Woking, and I believe in our neighbouring boroughs and unitaries. So it's something that is very well used and very popular, not surprisingly. And about 60 families use the service, which is also available if there are any gaps, and there aren't often any gaps, to be bought from outside agencies as well. And the council needs to renew this lease. And once it's renewed the lease, it wants to refurbish the accommodation, provide the individuals who are taking respite there with the best service available and the best accommodation available. And Imogen will be very pleased to know that there'll be no increased cost of the lease agreement, apart from the refurbishment, and that's already budgeted through the MTFP. So this is something that I don't think we need to take long over. It is something that is very important, and if we don't say yes to it, it will have some huge effects, to be quite honest, on the whole situation. So it's something that's important to agree to and to go forward with.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions, Prue?
Sorry.
That's it, right? Hello. I'm not know whether this is a question or a comment, so you may wish to respond, you may not. This item is accompanied by a notice because it's an urgent decision. And I understand that, and I understand absolutely the urgency and the need to do it. But I am slightly surprised to see that the lease actually expired in April 2021. That's quite a long time ago. How have we managed to get ourselves in a situation where we've gone for 18 months without a lease?
I saw that too, and I'm not totally certain how we went through this situation, but the lease is renegotiated and is the responsibility of the commercial property estates rather than adult social care. So I think it's the two not working hand in hand, and something went wrong between the two, and so it is something which is important to get fixed. And I'm sure that certainly Matt Pope and Adult Care will take notice of something like this and say, we're not going to let that happen again, and therefore make sure that the lease is started to be negotiated well before it runs out. But this one should run to, I think it's 2035 with a rate clause in 2031. So we've got another 10 years, more than 10 years.
Thank you. Imogen?
Just a quick question. Can you confirm that Optilism lists are a living wage, pay at least a living wage?
I can indeed, and they want to pay more than the living wage, but it's very hard to find the money to do that.
Any other questions? Any other statements? No? Oh, Stephen?
Just to say this is an incredibly worthwhile thing to be doing, and I'm delighted that this is going forward, and I'm sure we'll all want to approve.
Okay, so we'll move to the vote. Item 57, page 75 of the agenda, and we're voting on the recommendations set out on that page. All those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. Item 58 was matters referred to the executive. I can confirm that no referrals have been received for us to consider. So we move to item 59, which will be presented to us by Councillor Shenton, Executive Member for Environment, Sport and Leisure.
Yes, in summer of 2021, we placed a motion before council to declare an ecological emergency. Because of the fullness of council agendas, it didn't get debated until November of 2021, at which point the previous administration essentially hijacked it and with an amendment that shunted it off into the siding of an existing task and finish group, the Tree Protection and Biodiversity Task and Finish Group, which is a very unusual thing to have happened. That group fairly and appropriately considered the elements of the motion and made recommendations. Those recommendations have now been matched up with officer responses. Officers wanted to respond to the recommendations, and the item 59.1 is a summary of the officers' responses, recommendation by recommendation. We are still currently working on bringing back the declaration of an ecological emergency to council. The item, when it's prepared, will take full account of the recommendations of the task and finish group and the officer responses herein described. This is not to be confused with the tree strategy, which is nearing completion, and that will be an entirely separate issue for this executive. I've got the second draft in my inbox at the moment, which I'm waiting to find a couple of hours to read through, but yes, that one's close to following on behind.
Okay, thank you very much, Ian. Does anybody have any questions? Sarah?
It's not a question, just a comment really. So I too have the tree strategy in my inbox to have a read of as well. I think we're looking through that next week together, aren't we? It was with the third recommendation, and this is for Lindsay as well as yourself, Ian, with obviously the Environment Act mandates a 10% biodiversity net gain when it comes to development, and obviously this was proposed for 20% biodiversity net gain. Obviously it's got to go through the local plan update process. I'm aware of a local authority where this has been turned down at inspector level. There are councils though that are very close to getting it approved. So we need to look at best practice to see how they have gathered the evidence to demonstrate this. And two to watch very closely are South Cambridgeshire and Cotswolds, who have both pretty much, it looks like they're going to get through. So I would take a look at those and see how they've done it so that we can get our 20% biodiversity net gain in as standard.
Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else have any questions, statements?
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Sarah, on that. We've tried to future-proof the local plan, particularly for all the climate and environmental changes that's going through. One particular issue I have is about the veteran trees. There is reference to that in here, and I would personally like to see the second version of the tree strategy, because I think we've got an issue. We've got 8,000 veteran trees in the borough, and they are essential, that they need to be protected. And we are looking at that within the local plan so that we can keep as many of those trees as possible.
Thank you very much, Lindsay.
I'll happily get a copy of it's still at draft stage, but it's the second draft. I can get that to you. It's about 50 to 60 pages at the moment, but.
Okay. Sarah?
So just to add a little point on that, obviously we are very fortunate to have the Wokingham District Veteran Tree Association, who Ian and I met with again recently. And alongside what you're asking for there, Lindsay, I think it'd be a good idea to mention, any members of the public watching or interested, they do need more volunteers as well to help with looking after our veteran trees and managing them. So that we do have an association for that. And if the public are interested, they would love volunteers.
Very good point, Sarah. Okay. Any other questions? Any other statements? So we move to the vote. It's agenda item 59.1 on page 83 of the agenda, and the recommendation is set out on that page. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And I think that concludes the meeting for tonight. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you to all the officers for attending.